Incredibly interested in my 6 stages of self-editing. My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. These 6 stages that I'm going to list out are for people who have already written a draft of the book and they know that it is a hot mess, because that is what every first draft is going to be. It is going to be a hot mess and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to fix. There's so many problems with this. I am totally and completely overwhelmed. What do I do? You're going to take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay. These 6 stages are going to get you through the self-editing process. You look at this and you're like, this is dumb. I like doing all of that all at once and I don't want to break this up. Then that's great. That's wonderful. I'm not going to judge your process. Everybody has a different process. This tool is not going to be helpful if you already have an editing process that you like and that works for you. This is for the people who are overwhelmed and who their process is not currently working for them. So buckle in. So you have already written a draft and you know that it is a mess, but you also have a vision. You know what it's going to look like. You know that it is going to be much better and it is worth putting the effort in. So we're going to go through these 6 different stages of self-editing. We're going to go through them one at a time. And yes, I do recommend going through them one at a time. You might look at this and be like, oof, some of those are going to go really fast. That's also great. We're going to start with the first one, and that is a structural edit. So a structural edit is where we are checking to see if the pacing and the structure of the novel makes any kind of sense. So we are going to, I'm going to put this up here, maybe that's going to help. We are going to pay attention to whether or not you have an inciting incident at the 10% mark, whether or not you have a darkest moment at the 80% mark. We're going to pay attention to whether or not you've got enough pinch points, if you are introducing main characters way too late, if you've got a ton of backstory that you are dumping on people. This is where you are going to move big chunks of things around. I often use the analogy that we are shoveling sand into a sandbox during a first draft and we're going to build castles later. Here is where we are starting to move things into position to make the walls of the castle. So we are making the things structurally sound. We are making sure that you have like the beginning, the middle, the end of the story. You are going through and making sure that the structure makes sense. This means that you're going to like take entire scenes and move them around within the story. You might be chopping off 10,000 words of backstory that you put at the beginning. You might be chopping off 6 different epilogues that you tacked onto the end of it, because that's just what happens on a first draft. Second one is you're going to do a character edit. So once you have all of those pieces structurally in place and you know that these scenes are going to go in this order, it is now time to read through it and to make sure that your character behaves in a way that makes sense. So because you moved things around, you took something that was at the end and you put it in the middle, and you took something that was in the middle and you put it at the beginning, you did all of this moving around. Do you now have a character that had gone from happy to sad, but now he goes happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad? Like, you're going to have to fix all of that. You're going to have to make sure that your character's arc makes sense against the backdrop of the story and the structure that you have built. Now, there will be still big changes happening here, especially if we have a character who is learning to be a better person, or if characters are falling in love with each other. You're going to have to make some pretty significant changes because you moved a lot of scenes around. And again, if you're looking, you're like, well, I'm not going to have to move scenes around. That's great. Structural edit was really easy for you. Good job. That's great. Wonderful. Third is the world edit. So because these first 2 are really heavy and are really difficult for most writers, I then suggest that you go in and you do a world edit. So whether or not you are writing science fiction or fantasy, you need to do world building. Even if you are writing contemporary realistic fiction, I still need to know, is this in a small town or a big city or out in the countryside? Is it summer? Is it winter? Are we on the coast? Are we in the middle of the American plains? Is this a poor person or a rich person or a middle class person? Or are they at work a lot, or are they at school? All of this is world building stuff. This is where you're going to add a lot of sensory details. We're going to talk about fashion and food and culture and cars and all of the stuff that is kind of fun to do. We're going to dive back in and we're going to have fun in your world. We're not moving things around anymore. We are going back in and remembering that you are the creator of worlds and you get to do fun things on this edit in preparation for the scene level edit. And so this is where you're going to come through, because everything's in the right order. We now know what these characters are supposed to be doing. We've done some fun stuff, and now we're going to make sure that every single scene is doing more than one thing. You're going to make sure that every scene is doing at least 2 of these 3 things. And those 3 things are pushing the plot forward, developing your character, or emphasizing the setting in some way. Those are 3 different things. 2 of them need to be happening in every scene, and ideally most scenes should be doing all 3, but that's not always going to necessarily be possible. You're going to go through and this is where you might now be taking 2 scenes that are back to back and you're smushing them together, or you are incorporating some stuff that you kind of did a lot of sensory details at the beginning, and we're going to add more of it into the back half of the story. We're making sure that every single scene is full and rich and good and immersive. You'll sometimes see people be like, every single scene has to have an arc and a rise and a fall and has to be this many words and this percentage, and like I don't get into that sort of level. Like, this is where you get to be in charge. I don't think that you need to do that kind of math necessarily, but if that is helpful to you, then do that too. That's great. And now we are digging into sort of the nitty gritty stuff. So this is the nuance edit. I don't have a better term for this, but this is where we are making sure that there is subtext. We are making sure that every single thing is not being said out loud overtly on the page. You are making sure that there is metaphor, that there is something happening underneath the surface that is subtextual, is nuanced, is layered, is intimate and intense in the story. We come to story for character, and we need to feel like we know this character better than they know each other, almost, right? Like, we want to be falling in love with these characters, and that's where you're going to accomplish this, is in this nuance edit. And then the last thing that we are going to do is this line edit. This is the nitty gritty stuff that makes people hate their editors. This is where we're going to tell you that you have too many Tuesdays in a week and that your character's eyes are shifting color for no reason, and the weather in that city at that time of year is impossible. It cannot be like that. And you said that he was tall, and over here you said that he's kind of tall. Which one is it? Make up your mind. We're doing that. Make sure that you have chosen the exact right word, making sure that grammar and punctuation. I wrap a proofread into this. Not everybody does. Some people will do a proofread at the end of this. We are doing all of the little teeny tiny nitty gritty stuff. If you thought that that was going way too fast, I do have a 1 hour version of this available on my Patreon at the $6 tier, and you can see me explain these in greater detail and give more explanations of what this looked like while you were doing the self-editing.